we're learning les pronoms interrogatifs. So, interrogative pronouns. Okay? So, if something is interrogative, it's asking a question. Okay? And it is a pronoun. So, instead of spelling it out word for word, you know, you're taking out something longer and shortening it a bit. Okay? So, this can be a little bit confusing. Just try to hang with me. If you can learn this and if you can master this, it will so help you and so benefit you. Because it's basically about asking questions and knowing the right words to use. Okay? So if you remember, like on the test, you know, one of the things you have to do is in the email, you have to ask a question at the end. And half the time with my notes to you with your questions is that it was okay, but, you know, I didn't understand it all, or it was a little bit confusing, or you used the wrong words to start it off, or something like that. So this, if you get this, that'll be super easy. So, okay, so here we go. We're going to start super basic. I'm going to take it all the way back to the 3 ways you just ask a question in French. Yes?
Is nom is name, right?
Nom can be a name or a noun. Either word. Yes. Okay. So let's start real quick with the 3 ways just how you can ask a question in French. So you have the sentence of Marc aime le français. Marc aime le français. So what are some ways we can make that a question?
Does.
You start with the word does, like does he like French? And what's that word? How can you make what can you add to a sentence before it and make it a question? Est-ce que. Okay. So that's one way. So you can say, est-ce que Marc aime le français? So you just took that sentence exactly as is, added est-ce que at the front, put a question at the end, boom. It's a question. Est-ce que Marc aime le français? Okay, what's another way you can use that sentence and ask a question? Well, qu'est-ce que just mean what. You can't say what Marc like the French. You can do inversion. M Marc. So you can do inversion. So that's where you switch the person and the verb. Instead of Marc M, you would say M dash, and then you use the subject. M Marc le français.
Does the verb be conjugated the exact same way?
Verb still gets conjugated the exact same way. It just starts the sentence so it gets capitalized.
So it'd be like aimez-vous.
Aimez-vous. Aimez-vous faire du jogging?
I don't think you have to write the name. You don't say M Marc le français, more
M-til. So you can't use Marc, right? Yeah?
I never hear that.
Okay, well, then we'll just switch it.
Yeah.
You can, the basic idea of inversion is you got to switch the subject and the verb. But you have to, because it's an il, and because you can't say Emile, like it sounds too weird, you need a consonant sound in there. So they do this. M-til. They just add a T, like it's deeped on, or, oh my gosh, there's tons of them. A-tel is like T and then the L. A-tel des crayons. Does she have pencils?
Wait, so it's A-I-M-E-T?
A-T-I-L. M-til le français.
When you said that she had
Pencils?
you said it was T.
Tell, because it would be tell.
What did you say T and L?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just the letter.
Til, tell. Yes. Til and tell. Okay, and then the other one is just by intonation.
So just how you say it?
Just how you say it, make your voice go up at the end. So it's like, you know, for like Marc likes French. I say, hey, Marc likes French? Like my sound goes up at the end. So you say, you know, Marc aime le français, and it just goes up and it means a question. The next thing you need to know, and this is just a little remark, but I don't feel like I need, well, I don't know. I'll just show you it in the book for a sec. Actually, I'll just show you this. So they're just reminding you, and I want you to look right here, that the words, the interrogative adverbs of combien, we just call them the question words usually, combien, comment, où, pourquoi, and quand, they all have to use inversion, or they use est right after them. Because you want to say, like, how many pencils are there in the can? You know, something like that. So you have to either say pourquoi and then use inversion. Pourquoi veut-elle? Or you can say pourquoi est-ce qu'elle veut? If you don't want to use inversion, you have to use est ce after these question words. We're used to this, but I just want to remind you. See, here's a good example. Combien a-t-il payé? How much did he pay? Or combien est-ce qu'il a payé? So you use inversion or you use est ce after question words. Katie.
Is one of those more formal than the other? Or?
Yes. This one with the est ce, they say is plus oral. It's more spoken, and this is more like formally written. But you can really use either. But you just hear the est ce a little more spoken in everyday conversation. Was that your question too? No. Okay. She figured it out. Okay, so just after these question words, why, where, whatever, you either have to use est ce, the subject and the verb, or you have to invert the verb and the subject. So, où vas-tu après l'école? Where are you going after school? Or où est-ce que tu vas après l'école? So, are we okay with that? Because I haven't added the crazy part yet. That's why I really wanted to take it way, way, way back.
Is this crazy thing something that will
The crazy thing,
it before?
I haven't gone over this in detail. There, you can start a question. These are interrogative pronouns. Qui, qu'est-ce que, qu'est-ce qui, qu'est-ce que, or quoi.
Okay.
So this is the crazy.
Oh.
Using all these. And knowing which one to use.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Okay? It's not that bad. I've broken it down into a little grid. Okay? So the only thing that is like qui est-ce que, qu'est-ce qui, qu'est-ce que. And then there's also qui, quoi, and que. There we
How
go.
come they just got rid of all of those other extra words in there?
And just put qui and que. That's what we've been practicing with this whole time. I've only taught you qui, que, and quoi, and I guess we use qu'est-ce que.
I mean,
So I've kind of taken out a few of the harder ones.
how can you say like
Qui est-ce qui, qu'est-ce qui, qu'est-ce que, qui est-ce. Yes. So I'm ready. Are you ready? You don't have to write this down yet. I was more focused on this because this I'm going to put in a grid for you. Okay? Are we ready? No. When you invert something, you're inverting the verb and the subject. So you normally say she wants by saying elle veut. So we say, like, why does she want to, like, move into this neighborhood? So pourquoi est-ce qu'elle veut s'installer dans ce quartier? Why does she want? But you can say, why want she to live here? So you put the want and the she, you switch on. That's the inversion.
So is like one better? So that the inversion's better. The first one, that one's better for writing, right?
Yeah, it's a little more formal, a little better for writing, technically. I mean, you could totally, it would not be a big deal if you said pourquoi est-ce qu'elle veut on the test. That would totally be fine. Okay. Can I move on to the grid? Okay, before we even get to the grid though, I know, it's a mini step to the grid. So I just need to make sure that you understand real quick the difference between the subject and the direct object of a sentence. Because the grid is based on the subject or the direct object. Okay, so super duper simple sentence here. Let's go with Jean donne le crayon à Marie. Okay, so what is the subject in this sentence?
Jean.
Jean. What is the direct object in this sentence?
Crayon.
Le crayon. This is obviously still the verb. This is technically the indirect object. Okay, so how I explain this in case you're having a brain fart today. Jean, the subject, does the action. Okay, so it almost always happens before the verb that you see the subject. You know, I love this class. Okay, so I is the subject, love is the action, it's the verb, it's what you do. And then whatever that action goes on to, that's the direct object. He gives, you can just walk around and say he gives. Oh, he gives, she gives, he gives. Gives what? You need a direct object with the verb gives. Okay? Same with love. Love requires a direct object. You can't just go, oh, I love and we all love. You love what? The verb requires a direct object. Something has to, that verb's action has to flow onto something. Okay, so that's the difference between the subject, that person does the action, direct object, that action flows on it. Are we okay? So, we could, I'm going to take this sentence and make it 2 different questions so you can see kind of how this is going to work with all those weird words. Okay, so I'm going to ask a question about the subject of this sentence. So if I ask a question about the subject of this sentence, I could say, for example, qui donne le crayon à Marie. So see how the subject is like the question, who gives the pencil to Marie? So this is about the subjects. My question, I could reword this sentence again and make it another question, but about the direct object. So I could say, I'll have to use qu'est-ce que here. So qu'est-ce que Jean donne à Marie? So what does Jean give to Marie? And now it's a question about the direct object. Okay, so this is what we're going to be doing with all those words. So you have to focus to figure out which word to use of all those qui, est-ce que, qu'est-ce qui, qu'est-ce que, and quoi. You have to figure out, is the question asking about the subject of the sentence or the direct object? Okay. So here's the easiest way I would recommend to you to figure out if it's about the subject or the direct object. This one, it says like who gives. Okay, there's no person there. But the subject, so you know it's the subject because the subject happens before the verb. So qui is the subject. So it's the question. But here I have a subject in my sentence. It's Jean. I know Jean is doing the giving. I have a subject, so it has to be about the direct object. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay, so here we go. So let's draw a grid here. And, oh man, my grid is quickly running out of space. I need another grid. Okay. So here we go. All right. So very simply, just draw a line across. And above it here, write subject. You're going to need several lines above and several lines below. Subject and then direct object. And just draw a line. So again, you're either talking about the subject or the direct object. Okay. Now, here's the next level of complication to this. You have to figure out if that item, whether it's the subject or if it's the direct object, you have to figure out if it's a person or a thing. So here, draw a line in between the subjects and draw a line here in between the direct objects. And so just write person, or I put object. And say no person or object. draw another one. Okay, so here's how it works. If your question is going to be about the subject, and the subject is a person, which happens a lot, you can start your sentence with qui. So here's an example. Qui va au café? Qui va au café? Who goes to the cafe? So you remember how qui, I feel like we talked about this in like French too, that qui is almost always followed by a verb in a question. Okay, so who goes? It's the subject. So qui usually is the subject, so it's followed by the verb. Or you can use qui est qui. And those basically mean the exact same thing. Right, Jennifer?
Yeah.
There's no difference between qui and qui est qui.
Just that we most now like
Use
we use
qui.
qui. We don't really say qui va au café.
So you say qui est qui va au café. Okay.
Or maybe there's a difference. Like qui va au café is like how many person like goes in the cafe. And like qui est qui va au café is like who is going now in the cafe.
Okay.
That will be the difference.
So how many? You want to say combien de personnes vont au café?
Yeah, but like when you're in group and you say qui va au café. Oh,
just like who from here is going to the cafe. Okay. So I get it. Okay. So anyways, that's you'll still use qui or qui est qui for if it's the person, if it's the subject of the sentence or the question and it's a person. Okay? Are you with me so far?
yes.
Yes. All right. So now if it's an object, so it's still the subject of the sentence, but we're not talking about a person. Now it's an object. So here you'll use qui est qui, but now it's just about something else. So for example, qui est qui influence les ados? So do you understand what that question is asking? Qui est qui influence les ados? What influences adolescents? So it might be money, it might be technology, it's just not going to be a person that influences them. It might be greed, jealousy, love, tons of different things. Yes?
What if you're asking who influences adolescents?
Then you just say qui?
I think you should probably say qu'est-ce, like Q-U apostrophe S.
Instead of qui est qui? That's qu'est-ce qui? There's all these little nuances. The book, what's funny is the book doesn't have that. But it actually, to me, makes more sense to say it that way.
Yeah, because qui is really for a person. So.
Yeah, qu'est-ce qui influence les ados? That's funny because the book doesn't have that.
Yeah.
But that actually makes more sense to me in my head. So, qu'est-ce qui influence les ados? So, but again, you would not be talking about a person. It's some other something. Could be an idea. Could be just something else like technology. Okay, so now moving on to, you're talking about the direct object. Okay, so here we go. So, if you're talking about a person, you can still use qui, but you're going to have a subject here. So you have to say something like qui, for example, qui avez-vous invité? Who have you invited? So you are the subject, you're doing the inviting, and they want to know the direct object, who's a person. Who have you invited? Or you could also word that as qui est-ce que vous avez invité? So again, you could use, instead of inversion, you could use eske. All right. Or, actually, that was actually what I had written. Very good. So you can use either ki or ki eske. Ki or ki eske. Those are your two options for that one. So one basically just requires inversion, the other one doesn't. Okay, are you still with me? I got less yeses on that one than before. Okay, last one here. Okay, is if you're talking about the direct object and it's an object. So like, you know, you gave a pencil to someone or something like that. Okay, so you would start your question out with k, and it would be required to have inversion after it. So k dirait tu à un snob. Que dirais-tu à un snob? Which would mean what? What would you say to a snob? So, you know, you're talking about something that's not a person. I would say you're a jerk. I don't know. Okay. So, that's one way you could say it. Or if you don't want to do inversion, then you would have to say just simply qu'est-ce que. Qu'est-ce que tu dirais à un snob? Qu'est-ce que tu dirais à un snob? If you notice this, basically, like on the ones where it's a direct object, it requires, since there's a subject, you're either required to do inversion if you want to use the shorter question word, or if you don't want to use inversion, then that's where you get like qui est-ce que, if you don't want to use inversion. Or here, que, and you have to use inversion. If you don't want to use inversion, you have to use que, technically est-ce que, but we make it qu'est-ce que. Do you guys see that? So that's with the direct objects. That's where you get like the qui est-ce que or qu'est-ce que. And then last thing, real quick, this is super tiny, but you know, you can say like with whom are you going. So if it's a person, you would say avec qui. So with whom. So you'd say, if it was a person, you'd say avec qui. And if it's an object, you have to say avec quoi. With what? So we've used avec qui a million times. But avec quoi, you know, like avec quoi est-ce que tu écris? Like with what are you writing? Oh, I'm writing with a pencil. You know, something like that. So if it's a person, after a preposition, you use qui. If it's an object, after a preposition, you use quoi. So that's where qui and quoi come in. Okay?